Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jaquita, and I am back with episode 5 of HerSpace On Cue. Okay, we made it back. So, you guys know that I'm doing the series, The Secret Lives of Happy Wives, and so I am bringing you episode 2 of that series. Today, I had an amazing opportunity to sit down with a very knowledgeable, talented, expert, professional woman. Her name is Dr. LaToya Cheathon. Let's get into it. But I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for being here with me and choosing and saying yes to me. I was trying to figure out where and when I wanted to, have you be on the show and to ask you. And so I have been doing a series called The Secret Lives of Happy Wives. And I did the first episode. And so I was like, wait, who can I get to do the second episode? Because I really think this is important. And I thought of you because, I mean, for one, I want to introduce you. You are an amazing therapist. You are an amazing support. You have helped me launch some of my own projects and workshops over the years. And so you have completely just been, I don't know, like a backbone to me. And also like someone, when I first seen you, I told you, like when I first seen you in the therapist groups, I was like, oh yeah, I need to meet her. I need to meet. And then from there, I went to your Prepare and Enrich training.
Uh-huh.
That was our first like encounter. And then, I asked you, could you help me with some work afterwards? And which you were helping me with, coaching me through some things and building my business. So I am just so grateful for you, Dr. Cheathon. Like I am.
I really appreciate that, Chiquita. Thank you so much. It's always nice to hear feedback on how I've impacted people. That's my goal. That's my heart. I love helping out the next generation of couples therapists.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to even come onto your platform and speak to your audience. And I'm always happy to support, and I am always excited to talk about couples, relationships, and anything that can be helpful for people in that way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Could you please introduce yourself? Just tell people what you do, who you are, and all the great things about you.
Definitely, definitely. So I am Dr. LaToya Cheathon. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I specialize in working with couples on relationships and sex-related issues. I have a master's degree in counseling, so I've been a therapist for quite a while now. I've been licensed for over 15 years, and I'm licensed in multiple states, so I see people across the U.S. I am also I also have my PhD in sexology, and so I'm also a sex therapist. So just really being able to bring that component into the room for couples therapy has been great. It's a topic that people don't want to talk about. People don't have they're not comfortable talking about because there's so much stigma around the topic. So just really being able to give people a space that's safe where they can really be vulnerable and talk about that sensitive topic has been really helpful for a lot of couples in their relationships. So
I think that's so beautiful and again, and so needed because I mean, as a couples therapist, I see couples all the time who are having sex related issues or, and it comes up so often. And I do think that it is a skill and it's something that is needed, a support. So I really love that. And I'm going to have to bring you back one day to talk about sex on the sex episode.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay, so thank you. So, okay, I wanted to invite you because of your expertise. Again, you are a licensed marriage and family therapist. You said you have a PhD in sexology, right? Like, and so I feel like just your background, your expertise in general is, exactly what we need to be able to talk about this. I've been finding that, you know, I am trying to tell the stories of wives who and women who are wives and who are in marriage. And what I've been finding in my work and as my own journey as a wife is that there are things and desires that women have and that, that we don't really talk about. And it's not like it's some, alien-esque type of desires. It's not abnormal. It's just that I feel like being a wife and getting married, there's a certain stigma, there's a certain expectation. I think, individually, we're trying to figure out what does it mean to be a wife and how am I supposed to act? And, what does this role require of me? And then what does that mean about who I was and who I am as a woman and growing? And so that is why I wanted to start this series, The Secret Lives of Happy Wives, because I was noticing in my own life, like, hold up, there's some stuff I was finding it hard to talk to my husband about. And I'm like, why is this so hard? Like, why does it feel like I'm doing something bad, or that like it's so difficult for me to speak about it? And
Right.
so I wanted to bring it to the table. And what I've been finding, I've been getting some feedback from ladies because I, have a Google form where people are submitting their untold truths and things like that, which I love so much. But I just wanted to have you chime in on this conversation. And I don't know, what do you think? Do you see the same thing amongst couples? And like, has this been your experience?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that there's an adjustment that is made when someone transitions from being single to being in a marriage. And I believe it happens on both ends, for husbands, for wives as well. But specifically for wives, there's a big transition that happens where, there's a sense of letting go of parts of who we are or how we identify and grabbing on to these new roles and responsibilities and this new identification of I am now a wife. And I think that for that transition, there's definitely a lot of women who struggle with that.
Absolutely. I agree. Why do you think women struggle with that transition? Like, what is there?
hmm Well,
Mm,
for me, I think a lot of things start when we're young. That's
mm,
really my angle with a lot of the challenge that people come in with is really taking a look at what were the influences that
mm,
we saw when we were growing up.
absolutely.
And I primarily see couples, and I'm sure we've talked about this. One of the things that I do as part of my assessment with the couple is I actually have a individual session with each person. And
Mm,
during that individual session, I ask a lot of questions about their background, their history, the things
yeah,
that they learned growing up, the ways that they saw people around them interacting and things like that. Because those are the things that build the foundation of how we show up in relationships because we're
absolutely.
learning, right?
Absolutely.
And so I think that, when you take a look at the messaging that the girls are receiving when they're from a very young age in our society, a lot of it is related to, I believe, kind of two different things that kind of
Mhm.
show up.
Okay.
One thing I think is related to the representation of what a woman's role is, what a girl's role is in relationships to men.
Mm,
Starting at a very young age. So if you watch like Disney movies, for example,
mhm.
we're watching these princesses. They're just damsels in distress, and whatever will they do to try to make it? And then, oh look, here comes their knight in shining armor. He's coming in to save the day, and that's the only way that she's making it.
Absolutely. Yep.
So that's definitely the message, right? Another message, the other part that I feel like has a big influence is how our family and community and religion see women. And
Absolutely.
so that piece right there shows up in a lot of the conversations that I have with women about their backgrounds. Just this idea of what was the role of a woman. A lot of women got a lot of sexual messaging from family members, like their parents and things like that, about your role is to make sure that you're pleasing your husband, and if you're not pleasing your husband, then he might go somewhere else, and just those kinds of messages are definitely showing up in relationships. Um,
Absolutely.
and then one more part I'll add on to that is the flip side. There's some people who grow up in households where there's a lot of messaging about how men are bad.
Mm,
Men only want one thing. No one, a man is never going to be faithful. A lot of women get those messages growing up.
absolutely. That's
And
very true.
so they sometimes will show up very guarded, very, with lack of trust in their partner. And they're starting off the foundation of the relationship with this doubt and skepticism about what their partner's saying. And that is a recipe for a very long road of trust issues and insecurities. And so I think those two parts, what we see in society as well as what we get at home and in our communities, those are the things that kind of shape who we think we're supposed to be when we show up in a marriage.
Absolutely. It's very interesting that you add that because that's the same thing that I see. And then I think that, I've been having conversations with clients about what about what about the aspect of women are sort of groomed to um, be chased and or to be pursued and to be like received, like, oh, you are like, oh, a man finds you, and things like that. And so
Right.
I feel like in that case, sometimes I feel like as women, we're groomed, or like we grow up hearing and learning about pleasing other people, the pleasure of other people. So we are trying to be the pleasure of other people. We're trying to be desired, and we want to be good enough. And oh, if you want to, you got to learn how to cook. If you want to get married, and you want to, there's so many things about us that as we grow up, it's for the pleasure and for the benefit of marriage. And so then when we get into an actual marriage and we find a husband, he can be amazing, but who we are is so, it's like you said, it's tied to what we see in the messaging in this, in society, but also how we grew up. But it's also tied to just, again, our expectations, what we think we're supposed to be like. And so then what happens to me is that we get stuck in this role of being there for everybody else's needs and being there for the husband needs, and like trying to be, this is what a wife is like, this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what he needs. So we start to adjust, as you said earlier, like we adjust to that marriage and to that man. And then what happens is, I feel like women lose themselves, and not in a bad way, but just like, and I don't know if I should say lose, but maybe we just have to rediscover. Because do you feel like you're not the same woman you start when the person, even for the man, of course,
Right.
you're not the same person when you start off married, who you are when you first start being married, to like 5, 10 years later.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with someone about that the other day. I think a lot of that honestly has to do with how much work do you do ahead of time before you get into the relationship.
Mhm.
Some
Absolutely.
people get married very young, and people who get married when they're very young, they haven't really fully gone through the identity formation that
Mhm.
is young adulthood. If we just take a look at like child development stages, right around a college age is when people start to really start the
Mhm.
process of building their identity, differentiating between who is the family that I'm leaving and what parts of them am I taking with me and what parts of them do I want to leave behind because they're not for me, right?
Mhm.
Once we do that part, then we're able to join with someone else who's also done that work. And then the two of us together can build what we want together because we both know who we are. We both know what we're looking for.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, a lot of people get into marriages before they've gone through that formation. Now, I mean, obviously, there's pros and cons on both sides. Not to say I'm not at all trying to say people should wait until a certain age to get married, but
Mhm.
just recognizing that if you're getting married young, that means you are making the choice to grow up together.
Absolutely.
Right. But what usually happens, I think, is that people join into the relationship and they have not yet done that work. And
Mhm.
then as they start to grow together, a lot of the times they end up growing apart.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
they're learning as they go is that the me that I'm becoming isn't necessarily the me that goes well with this other person.
Mhm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so I think that plays a big role in it. But as you know, before they get to a point where they're growing apart, a lot of the times there's I believe a push and pull, like a movement that's
Mhm.
going on, as both people are trying to discover their identity. They want to
Absolutely.
know, who am I outside of, okay, yes, I'm a wife, yes, I'm a mother. Who else am I? Like, what types of things did I maybe leave behind that I used to really enjoy reading? I haven't read a book in
Mhm.
years. Or, I when I was younger, I used to play basketball, and I haven't had time to do that lately. What
Absolutely.
parts of ourselves are we losing as we're going through? What kinds of sacrifices, what kinds of parts of ourselves are we sacrificing?
Mhm.
Because if I say this, then they might get upset. Or if the last time we had a conversation on this topic, my husband didn't really want to talk about it and it caused an argument. So I'm just going to go ahead and take care of it myself, or I'm just going to not say anything about it and just deal with it. Those are examples of how we can start the process of really losing ourselves. And the more
Mhm.
we do that over time, the more we get to a longer or I'm sorry, a later part of our marriage where we're really coming into therapy and saying things like, I feel like I've lost myself in this marriage.
Mhm. Absolutely. That was wild. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think that it's interesting that you said where there's a part of when you like, when you come into the marriage and you are two different people, you're trying to differentiate, you leave your family, you're trying to figure out who you are. And that happens for men and women. And I always wanted to say that, because even in this series, I'm just like, I don't want people to think and get the wrong impression that I'm just trying to say, like, I love marriage. I believe in companionship, but again, it has to be a good fit for that couple. And to
Yeah.
me, it's about building a marriage and creating a union that is unique to yourselves, not to based on all these other things that you see. And I think that that is part of the issue. Sometimes we get stuck in these ideas, these roles, or these expectations, and that happens for both men and women. But the reason that I wanted to highlight this so much for women is because, for one, I'm a woman, and I feel like my purpose is to help and highlight the journeys of women, because I think that we oftentimes can influence the rest of the world and how things end up going. And
Mhm.
so it's like, why not start there? But I find sometimes that it's so hard for women to talk about this. Why do you think it's difficult for women to even admit, like, hey, I may have a different desire than you, or maybe something like, maybe I do want to go dancing or play basketball or something. Why do you think it's so difficult to speak up about what it is that we need?
Yeah. I think it really goes back to that people pleasing piece, right?
Hmm.
If you think about the idea of the messaging that we're receiving, the goal is to be chosen, right?
Hmm.
And so if we're going to be chosen, that means we have to be a certain way for the person to choose us.
Yeah.
And so when women walk into relationships, I think a lot of the times, especially early on in the relationship, people tend to be, what do they say? We show up as our representative.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're like, oh, you like that kind of music? I like that kind of music too. And
Yes.
not to say that men don't do that too, that people pleasing, let's, align in that way. I mean, that I'm sure that happens on their side as well. But for women, we're definitely, I believe, trained to show up in a way that will allow us to be chosen and pursued. And so when we have to step outside of that and the real us starts to show up, oh, you're a little messier than I thought you were, or "Oh, you
Mm.
really don't like to go to church. You just go to church because you think that I want to go to church." And as that part starts to show up, I think that it can create some anxiety um,
Yeah.
of the, am I still pleasing them? Are they still
Hmm.
going to accept me?
Absolutely.
Do they
Wow.
still see my value? Do
Hmm.
they still desire me? And if I start making these changes, is that going to be okay for them?
Absolutely.
So I think that the focus shifts away from, hey, I'm an individual, I am learning about myself when I'm single, to
Hmm.
now I have this person and my focus is to try to, be a good fit for them, whatever that looks like. And
Yeah.
as a
Absolutely.
result, parts of self starts to kind of drop off. But I think it
Hmm.
all goes back to the idea of really just people pleasing, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I like that you said the part about, like, will this person accept me? Will they, will this still be good enough for them? I feel like that's a very, impactful perspective about that is how it feels. Like, am I going to be accepted? Am I going to be received? Is this okay too? And I think it's this also this other notion of, how do I make space for myself? How do I nurture me while I'm taking care of other people? What do you suggest for women, and couples in general, but what do you suggest for women in marriages where they have maybe taken on the role of the mother and the wife, of course, right? Like, the role in itself is very encompassing, and it's,
Mhm.
it takes over a big part of your life. But what would
Mhm.
you say to those women who are like, okay, well, how do I find myself again when I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm trying
Mhm.
to make sure I be there for him. I'm also trying to make sure I be there for the children. Like, I'm working. How do you find time to nurture yourself within that partnership?
Yeah, yeah. That is a great question, right? And because that's what a lot of people struggle with, a lot of women specifically. We have the tendency to be caregivers. So we're putting our needs on the back burner to take care of others. But as everyone hears, every time we get on an airplane, I just got off an airplane yesterday, I'm telling you, we got to put our mask on first before we
Mhm.
try to help the other person.
Yeah.
And if not, what's happening? We're saving the people around us, but we're dying ourselves.
Mm. Wow.
And so it's so essential to practice self-care. Now, women have been taught, as what men have also been taught this, that self-care is selfish. That's
Mm.
They bend the message. It's not supposed to be all about you. What about what your family needs? What about what your man needs? Those are the messages that women get oftentimes in our society from their families and communities, and from TV and things like that. So just really taking a step back and recognizing that we cannot adequately care for anyone else when we're not caring for ourselves. And
Mhm.
so our needs are important. And if our body feels like it needs some exercise at the gym and we're just denying it because, oh, we have so many things to do, then
Mhm.
we're not listening to our body and giving our body what it needs.
Absolutely.
Going to show up. It's going to show up in other places. So yeah, maybe we stop going to the gym, even though we know that that's good for our bodies, because our kids have too many sports activities. We're
Mhm.
running around doing all these different activities for them. Okay, great. Our kids' bucket will be overflowing. Our
Mhm.
bucket's going to be so low and dry that when we go to those games and afterwards, maybe we're irritated with our family members. Maybe we are yelling at them more and things like that. Maybe we're getting into more conflict with our partner. Maybe we're shutting down more. Maybe we don't feel like doing anything. I just don't even feel like getting out of bed today. I'm just
Mhm.
going to just lay here all day. The challenges we have that we ignore are going to show up in other ways.
Absolutely.
And so it's so important for women and people in general to practice self-care and self-compassion.
Mhm.
And I think the way that they find what that looks like for them is you just start somewhere.
Mhm.
You may realize like, okay, fine, what do you want to do? I like to go to the beach. Maybe I live by the
Absolutely.
beach. In my dreams, I do. So
I know that's right.
I like to go to the beach, and I haven't really had time to go walk on the beach like I like to do. I'm going to make myself do it today. The
Yeah.
laundry can wait,
Mhm.
right? The maybe we can order some takeout today, so that's the way someone can bring the food to us. The kids will have something to eat, and I'm going to go ahead and go out. Prioritizing ourselves looks like making a way because we
Mhm.
all get the same 24 hours. Nobody's going to get more time than anyone else. And if our time is occupied with giving to everybody else and we have no time left to give to ourselves, then
Mhm.
we are basically we're choosing to get to a place where we're going to be burnt out, resentful,
Mhm.
and having whatever other kinds of issues come out of it. We can
Absolutely.
make the choice instead to prioritize taking care of ourselves. It doesn't have to be 3 hours a day or anything crazy like that. It could really be how can I take a 20-minute walk in the evenings?
Absolutely.
Because that's what's going to help me to feel better and making sure that I prioritize that like I would prioritize caring for someone else.
I know that's right. You know why this is so important? Because like as you're talking, I'm thinking it's so small steps, so small things like,
Mhm.
making time for yourself, getting things that you like, taking a walk or visiting friends or, going to the beach. It's those small things that are ignored and that are like, oh, I'll do it. Like you said, pushed on the back burner that lead up to like bigger issues. Like you said, like, and what I think it leads up to is like infidelity. It
Oh,
leads up to because we are so used to our desires and things being met by other people or like getting them from other people, I
mhm.
often feel that like when we start to neglect those, little small nuances that we should, that would be nice to do and that I feel like it's necessary for upkeep for ourselves,
Yeah.
they lead to um something else. It leads to like I'm not gonna call them darker desires, but they lead to something that's deeper. Like now we're thinking about other people. I wonder how that feels, like how this person is, or because we're looking for other people to I don't know, fill in the blank. You know what I'm saying? Whatever's missing, we're looking for it. And sometimes if we feel like we have no space to give it to ourselves, we seek it like unconsciously from somewhere else until it becomes conscious. And now we're thinking like, oh, this person looks good, or maybe that would be interesting, or maybe I should hit this person up who was an ex or something, and the sex was amazing, or maybe this person I had fun with, because we are so in the role that we are in that we are neglecting ourselves and it becomes a bigger thing. So that's
Right.
been the finding and my theory about this is
Mhm.
why it's so important to do the small things because
Right.
they do lead to bigger things. And and again, I believe that like relationships, you can develop it however you want. We know that there's monogamous relationships, we know that there's polyamorous relationships, there's polygamy, there's open marriage, what is it called? Consensual non-monogamy.
Non-monogamy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's types of marriages, but I don't think that most people who get into a monogamous marriage are looking for those things. I think that they're just so confused and get stuck on how to bring their own desires into the marriage again when things kind of go astray, that they oftentimes end up in infidelity or, in emotional type relationships with other people. But
Mhm.
that's not really what you're looking for. I don't know. What do you think about
Yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, I think that that is definitely part of it, right? For
Mhm.
a lot of people. Now, I do think that there are some people, like you said, who have already been engaging in consensual
Yes.
non-monogamy relationships before. Maybe they already know this is an area that they're really interested in. Maybe they've never done it before, but they already kind of have it brewing in their minds, like, this could be something. I think
Mhm.
that that's kind of different than
Okay.
the people who are monogamous, identify as monogamous, have no desire to be with anyone else except for their partner. But since they can't get their needs met from their partner, then they start thinking of ways to kind of add on in order to get that. In my
Absolutely.
opinion, and this is just my opinion, I think that's two different people, right? That's two different
Yeah.
types of
Dang.
scenarios.
Yeah.
And some people may not agree with me, if they, maybe they have different views on it. But what I try to do with couples who come in and they are more so that second group of people who have said that they've never had any interest in this before, but this is like, since we, for example, haven't been having sex as often as we used to, or we're always tired, we don't have any desire, we're so busy with work and kids and stuff. We are looking for something to kind of spice things up because we have a lot of vanilla going on in our marriage, in our sex life. It's very like the same all the time. It's like
Yeah.
monotonous. So we're looking for something to spice things up, or we're looking for something to offset how much I want it versus how much they want it. Those kinds of things. I really believe that there's relationship related stuff that needs to be worked through in that before they make that type of a decision, because it's a big jump to go
Mhm.
to a space of opening the relationship to let other people in. And I believe that that's not a jump that a couple would really want to make during a time when their foundation is already rocky.
I
It's
agree.
not going to solve things. That's going to potentially give a temporary solution to offset some of the problems that are going on. But the problems, if they're not resolved, are going to continue to be there, and then they're going to show up in different ways.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's my opinion on that. I will say that the not giving ourselves, not feeling like we have a voice, not in our marriage, not feeling like we're heard or seen or our opinions valued, not feeling desired by our partner because they're so busy, and not feeling emotionally connected in a relationship. I think that those are some things that can definitely lead to people having physical or emotional affairs, and getting because they're seeking to get their needs met outside of their relationship. So yeah, I think that that is definitely, those things all do play a role. And one thing I wanted to say, when you were talking, I was thinking about this. One of the things that I teach my couples to do is something that I call, um, uh, hold on, I forgot what it was called. Hold on. um, Pause, reflect, express.
Mhm.
So whenever there's a conflict going on, the idea of pausing first rather than impulsively responding or reacting to what's going on, taking a pause and going away and reflecting. What do
Mhm.
I need? What am I feeling? Very
Mhm.
simple. What am I feeling? What do I need? And then going and expressing it to our partners. And,
Mhm.
there's a method in how I teach people to do it. But the idea is figuring out what it is that you actually need and want, right?
Yeah.
Because that way you're not just arguing about something and just kind of throwing jabs that are not really what you really want. Well, fine, then I just won't even do this and that. Like,
Mhm.
but you want to do that. You're
Absolutely.
saying that because you're upset and you're throwing things out, and then the next thing you know, your partner's expected, well, you said that you wanted to do that or you didn't want to do that. So I thought you didn't. But I just said that because I was mad. Okay, so then how about instead of just saying things when we're mad, we pause and we really think about it.
Wow.
Who am I in this? What do I really want in this? What are my desires? What kinds of things would help me to feel less of the emotions that I'm feeling that are driving this.
Mhm.
Figuring that out in a very isolated, reflective way and a very mindful way, I think
Mhm.
that that's the part that of the self-care that can be missing with women who are putting themselves on the back burner, because we can forget what we actually want. We can forget who we actually are and what's most important to us, because we kind of get absorbed into, you know,
Mhm.
this union that we're in. And what does the couple need? What does the family need? What does my marriage need? What does my partner need? Not what do I need so much.
Mhm.
So forcing ourselves to do things like journaling, do things like reflection, do things like prayer, meditation, whatever it is that people do to really go internal, to really learn more about ourselves. That is how we hold on to our identity and make sure that it does show up in the relationship. Because I always tell people, couples need both sides. We need what you have and what you have to bring to the table, because together you can make the whole picture that's going to be that very balanced approach. We can't have it be one-sided because we're just giving in to the other person the whole time.
Mhm.
And so that's how we make sure that we are consistently showing up, by taking the time to ask ourselves what we even need.
I love that. That's powerful. And I'm sure that the audience could benefit from that. Just to pause, reflect, and then what's the third one?
Express, then
Express.
express
Yeah.
it. Mhm.
Exactly. I love that. I mean, it just causes us to be mindful and to really, as you said, just to really, really think about it, what it is that you want and not just spew out things. I don't think that that helps the conversation when
Right.
we approach things in anger or when we approach things out of frustration. The
Mhm.
message doesn't come across clearly. When you are in session and, across your work with couples, how have you found that men in session respond to their wives' desires? Like, what if a woman is like, oh, I want to do this, or maybe, it could be whatever. It does not have to be an extreme desire. It could just
Mhm.
be maybe that she's growing, she's changing. Maybe she wants to do something different or live in a different state, or maybe she does not want to do this job anymore. She wants a little bit more freedom. Maybe she wants to go out more or introduce something to the relationship. How have you found men to respond, the men that are in these marriages to respond?
Yeah, it really depends, right? It varies a lot. A lot of the, I know we're talking a lot about the gender aspect of things, the men and the women. I actually kind of take things more so from the attachment lens. So, just to kind of account for the variability. Sometimes I feel like the ways that people show up, in my opinion, is more related to their attachment styles. So if there's a person who is, for example, and not to just get all into the attachment styles, but if there's a person
No,
who is
hey.
if there's a person who's like more of a anxiously attached person, versus the avoidantly attached person, those are kind of the two sides. A person who's more anxiously attached is usually going to be more of a dreamer. They're going to be
Mhm.
more flexible. They're going to be more open to considering things like, maybe we could move to Tokyo, like why not? Whereas a person who's on the other side, who's more of the avoidantly attached person, they're most of the time going to be more consistent, more steady, more uncomfortable with change, more, focused on trying to keep things stable and be logical and rational. So the idea of, oh, let's move to Tokyo could definitely be met with, what are you talking about? Like, why would we move to Tokyo? Like, we have a house here, our family's here, the kids are in school. Very rational, logical, not very emotional or dreamlike, right?
Mhm.
And so that role could be played by either person. But either way, I think that and then I guess I'll add in the gender aspect of things, and just to say that most of the time, much of the time, the women do tend to be anxiously attached. Men do tend to be avoidant. So that there is the gender piece that does play a role in it, and I think that that honestly is shaped by society also.
Mhm.
Because if we are insecurely attached in any way and we are triggered, whether we respond in an anxious way where we're pursuing and trying to attack and fix the problem, or whether we respond in an avoidant way where we're trying to shy away from,
Mhm.
avoid the problem, and maybe keep the peace, is going to also be largely dependent on the gender, right? Men
Absolutely.
are more likely to respond in a way that's let's stabilize everything, let's compartmentalize things, let's not address stuff until it's an actual issue. Whereas women are more likely to be like unable to or have difficulty with compartmentalizing. Like I can't think about anything because our relationship's going crazy right now. I can't even think about work. That's more like how a woman's going to respond. And so the idea of trying to anticipate challenges and stuff like that is more likely to be something that a woman would do in general. So looking at the anxious and the avoidant is, I think, a big piece of it. But the receptivity of someone else's recommendations and the ability to be influenced and flexible is going to be the thing that I think really determines the response when someone brings it up. And
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that's, I mean, the last part, I guess I'll say to kind of just wrap it up is women, I think, are more likely to, if they are the ones who are bringing this up in this scenario that you're saying, how would the man respond? I think it's just going to depend on, how often does she bring things up like this?
Absolutely.
How does she ask for the things that she wants? How receptive is he in general, and how open to influence is he by her? All of those different pieces, I think, would contribute to how whether or not he'd be open to the ideas that she's presenting with.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I really am like I love that so much because I think it's going to be helpful and just informative to people about, wow, where am I at? What is my attachment style?
Mhm.
And maybe getting more curious about finding out what their attachment style is and understanding how they are connecting to their partner and maybe how their partner is connecting to them. I have just two more questions and then we're gonna be done. But like, how do you think a marriage, like, or do you think that a marriage can come back from disconnection, or like when people are going in different directions, or maybe growing, not apart, but maybe just growing. But like, I feel like the part probably comes from if they don't ever get back on the same page and understand each other. But like, we are always growing and changing. So it's like, how does a couple come back? Is it possible for a couple to come back from disconnection?
Oh yeah, definitely. I believe that we all can come back from disconnection. It just takes both people being willing to be flexible and kind of lean in to our partners.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the times when couples get into conflict, there's a cycle of conflict and disconnection that goes on, and most of the time that is related to insecurities within the relationship about the connection. Like I
Mhm.
to know that you love me. I really want to know that you value me as a person, and you're not trying to take away my autonomy and who I am. You're not trying to make me be somebody different than I am. You're not trying to you're not this is not causing a threat to our relationship. Those are the worries that people have underneath a lot of it. So when people can come into a place like therapy and sit with someone who can help them to understand those deeper, more covered up emotional desires and needs, and help them to figure out that by doing things like the reflection, like what am I
Mhm.
really feeling right now? Um, for example, if a couple's having a conflict, it might sound like, why didn't you pick the kids up on time yesterday? I'm so frustrated about it. I'm so angry. But frustration and anger, those are secondary emotions. So as that couple, as that partner learns more about what's under that, I feel disrespected. I feel like I'm not valued. I feel like I'm in this all alone by myself. I feel like you're lying to me because you're telling me you're going to do something and you're not doing it. Whatever the meaning is that that person is making in their mind, that's what's prompting them to be so upset about you not picking up the kids yesterday on time. So the couples that stay in the space of just dealing with things on the surface level and never get to the underlying parts, that's where they're keeping themselves in disconnection. And it's
Mhm.
just driving them apart because they don't understand why you're so upset about me not picking up the kids on time. You're making a big deal about it, or they don't understand, why don't you see how important it is for you to pick the
Mhm.
kids up on time, right? They're not understanding each other. And so as a result, they're staying in disconnection. So
Wow.
the way to get back connected starts with understanding ourselves as individuals better and what we need, what makes us tick, what kinds of things trigger us, and what we need to get back on track when that happens. And then
Mhm.
if both people do that work, they can come
Yeah.
together and get themselves out of disconnection and remember that, yep, he's yelling at me right now and I don't like the way he's talking to me. The tone is like really making it hard for me to hear him. But if I can see through that tone, I know that he's actually just saying he was really scared the other night when this situation happened. And I can choose to connect with him where he's at instead of getting turned off and, upset in response to the way he's showing up. If I can meet him where he's at in the fear and the anxiety that he's experiencing and show up to support him and help him to feel emotionally safe, then he'll turn towards me and we can together move forward, in connection. So
Yeah.
that's what's needed.
It is. It is. It's such a big deal. I always think like underneath what we're really trying to say is we need to feel safe. Each partner needs to feel safe, right? In order for any connection to be. And I feel like, as you're saying, if people want to take their relationship from being so superficial and being more surface level to
Right.
more deeper connection, they have to have these tough conversations, and they also have to offer the same things that they will want in return, and
Mhm.
which is safety on each part. And so just hearing each other better. I love that you added all this. The last part that I want to ask you is like, what would be your advice to give to women to who are maybe she's been in a marriage for a while, and she loves her husband, she's happy, she's not unhappy, she loves him, she probably wants to be with him forever, but like she is, she feels like she's kind of losing herself, she's lost herself, she's finding that most of her time is spent with the kids or her husband, or trying to conform, but maybe she wants to do some things that are a little bit different, than people may be like, that ain't you, like what is this, how would you, what would you advise her to do in order to maintain the joy for the duration of her life in her marriage?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think building up that solid foundation of who you are and your own identity and what you like. I think that's a big part of it. And then the other thing that I would say is giving yourself some space to explore that without judgment. We can definitely should on ourselves by saying, well,
Mhm.
I shouldn't need this. I know I have a good man, so I shouldn't be upset that he's doing this or that. If you're upset, that's how you feel. Learn
Yeah.
more about that upsetness, learn more with curiosity, explore why is it that I'm so interested in doing this thing that I thought that I didn't want to do? Or why is it that I'm interested in doing this, but I'm choosing not to because I feel I'm afraid of how other people will see it. Okay, you kind of reconciling that is necessary, right? Just really exploring and understanding it more because at the end of the day, nobody else really is going to be living your experience of your marriage. So if no one else is in the bedroom with the two of you. So if you guys decide to do something that's out of the ordinary or whatever what you think society would expect of you, that's your business. Who cares what other people think in that way, right? So kind of trying to shift away from being so focused on what do I think everybody else is expecting of me and more focused on what do I want for my life? What's going to feel good for my body? What's going to feel good to me as I wake up and go to bed at night? What's going to
Yeah.
help me sleep better? You know,
Yeah.
it's not going to be making sure that everybody else around me is satisfied with my life because you know what? They're not so concerned about you being satisfied with their lives. They're actually just living their lives. And so
Mm.
that would be my encouragement is
Yeah.
shifting focus on ourselves. The moment you start to feel like, am I losing myself in this relationship? Do I
Mhm.
even know who I am? That is your first clue to start to find yourself again before you slip away completely. And then you're in a space where it does drive your marriage apart. Because the last thing
Mhm.
I'm going to say is by doing this, you are feeding the relationship. You're
Mhm.
making yourself be a better mom, showing up as a better wife, being able to be a more whole human,
Mhm.
and being able to be the woman that he liked, be the woman that he was attracted to in the first place. Because that's another thing I hear from a lot of men. She's changed so much. When I first met you, you used to do your own thing. Now we're together and you just want to be with me all the time. And I can't go do what I want to do because you're making me feel bad about it. Why don't you go do something for yourself? And
Mhm.
so doing continuing to focus on ourselves is the thing that is going to be attractive to the man in our life as well. So it really is good all the way around when we do take care of ourselves in the midst of
Yes, yes. I just
it.
love you. Oh my God.
I love it.
I do. Like it makes me emotional. I want to cry. Like I'm such a crybaby, but like it's because you have always added so much value to me as a growing therapist, and and so every time I talk to you, I just feel so inspired, and I feel, just you being in this space and sharing what you know. I just feel like it's so aligned, and I'm just so grateful for you being here. And like, I believe that the audience is going to get so much benefit from this conversation and talking to you. I mean, just hearing you and all that you had to offer. So I thank you so much for being here. Is there anything else that you want to add? And then I want you to tell the people how they can find you, follow you, and what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, the only thing else that I want to add is I appreciate you for having this space because
Mhm.
there's so many women and men who
Mhm.
need this information, right? We're,
Mhm.
we're trying to figure things out. There's a lot of stigma around having conversations and acknowledging that we're even having any issues. Most
Mhm.
couples wait way too long to start couples therapy because they keep trying to handle it themselves. And they're thinking, well, the people on social media seem to be doing great. All my friends seem to be okay in their marriages. So I'm not going to go tell people that we're having issues. That is the exact mentality that keeps people trapped in marriages that are not going the way that they need to be going, and it keeps them trapped in that space because they don't think that they can get out of it. They don't think that it's no, and I'm not talking about when I'm saying that it sounds like it's abusive or toxic or something. It's not that. I'm just talking about women can feel like this is the way that it is, and there's nothing really I can do about it. But the reality is that things can shift, things
Mhm.
can be different, and everyone is dealing with something. So even
Everyone.
if it looks like they're not, because they know how to paint it very beautiful on Instagram, the reality is that everybody's dealing with something. So to be able to have these types of spaces where we talk about what's really going on and
Mhm.
the ups and downs of a relationship that lasts a lifetime, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be seasons and challenges, and they're very normal to have those. But the question is, how do you work through those together as a couple? And these types of conversations facilitate that. So that's why I really appreciate you having this platform and inviting me on to speak about it.
No problem. Thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate. I mean, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and it feels so right. So I'm like, yeah, yes,
So needed. And,
yeah.
and so I'm sure that it's very appreciated by your audience, anyone who hears what you're doing. But if anyone wants to find me, I am on Instagram. I'm at Dr. LaToya Cheathon. I do a lot of education on a lot of stuff about working with couples because I do work with a lot of couples therapists and aspiring couples therapists and just really building up their confidence and their competence in couples therapy. I host a consultation group where I invite other therapists to come in and just really grow and learn and build skills and discuss cases. So that I usually run that twice a month, and the information is on my page for that. And like I said, I'm currently living in Texas. So I do have a physical office location in the Dallas area. In addition to that, I have clients, or I'm sorry, I have licenses in California, Georgia, and North Carolina. And I also see people in Florida. So if anyone's in any of those states and you are in need of couples therapy, or if you want to do maybe an intensive couples session where you can come in for several hours and really work through some of those bigger things like fidelity and stuff like that, I'm available. I'm here for it. You can always reach out and connect with me.
Yes, absolutely. And as you guys can see, she's very transformative, very knowledgeable, and really what good at what she does. And so you won't be disappointed. And just to be able to be in session with you, I can't imagine. Like, I feel like it's like a whole experience. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I appreciate and I will see you soon because I'll be at the next consultation group. But thank you so much for being here, for adding so much value to this space, and for sharing your knowledge with the audience. Thank you again, and I hope you have an amazing day.
You're so welcome. Thanks again for having me. You have a
You're
great
welcome.
day, Chiquita.
You
Take
too.
care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.